I do?
Two.
Two, okay. Sige, I'll begin. Filial piety. The Chinese have a saying, lust is the worst of all that is unwholesome, while filial piety is the foremost amongst all that is wholesome. In the context of today's civilized society, this phrase deserves some reevaluation. Intimacy is a natural part of life. As such, numerous descriptions and idioms eulogizing marital love can be found throughout history. So why would lust be considered the worst of all that is unwholesome? Without this unwholesome deed, would the human race not be extinct? Therefore, Buddhist teachings presented today should not erode normal and ethical relationships between people. The Buddhist teaching of not forsaking a single dharma means that all dharmas are one and interrelated. Even marital relationships were properly addressed by the Buddha. Therefore, it would be more appropriate to change the saying, lust is the worst of all that is unwholesome, to sexual misconduct is the worst of all that is unwholesome. Proper marital relationships are advocated by the Buddha, while sexual misconduct, on the other hand, is unacceptable even to society. Sheila next.
Okay.
Yes, Sheila.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Inappropriate relations such as incest are indeed profoundly immoral. Polygamy and extramarital relationship. Wait, can you go down? I need to read the last line. Pa. Polygamy and extramarital relationships are also considered unwholesome and improper. Such practices should be eradicated and abolished. On the other hand, proper and wholesome relationships should be supported, for they are just as valid as the idea filial piety is the foremost amongst all that is wholesome. It is also natural and proper for children to take care of their parents, particularly in their old age, so that they lack nothing in life. But in Buddhism, as noted by Master Lian Qi, 1523 to 1615, this is considered only the most elementary level of filial piety. Above that would be to bring honor to one's family. Even greater would be to guide one's parents towards practicing the Buddhist teachings so that they avoid the suffering of samsara. That is what is considered the most superlative form of filial piety.
Let's call Peter.
Is this from since?
Yeah, since.
Since ancient times, filial piety has been considered the foremost virtue within the Chinese culture. Moreover, it has been imbued with the notion of obedience as well. The idea of filial piety is acceptable, but its concept of obedience needs to be re-examined because the harm it causes on children of Chinese descent is unparalleled. For example, a young person's aspiration to pursue a career away from home may be hindered or halted by the belief that a son or daughter must always remain close to home until their parents passing away. Parental obeisance should not be used as a means to constrain a child's life pursuits. In terms of relationships, what should have been a natural unity of love could unfortunately be obstructed by parental interference that forces two people without affinities to marry. Where then is the joy in life? Parents need to be understanding and open-minded, otherwise their unreasonable and irrational behaviors enforced onto their children as the disguise of filial piety could compromise their children's dreams and ambitions. Such harm can further cause collateral damage to the future cultural and workforce developments of a country. You're muted.
Gerson, can you finish the paragraph?
Yes, good evening. Therefore, it is time to advocate a new perspective toward filial piety, although it is a basic ethic inherent to Chinese culture and should be propagated. Parents should also be upheld to respect their children as well. Children should be allowed autonomy when they come of age. Just as the saying goes, let your children and their children find their own path. Being open minded and granting them the freedom to choose their future is an important lesson for modern parents.
Modern day.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So I'll go back to my slides. So in the article, we started with this saying in Chinese: lust is worst of all that is unwholesome, while filial piety is the foremost amongst all that is wholesome. So in the article itself, Venerable Master Xing Yun pointed out that if if lust is considered unwholesome, then if everybody avoids it, then human race will become extinct, right? So seemingly, if you just look at this statement, lust is the worst of all that is unwholesome, it seems like a wise statement. But if you look deeper, this is lacking a bit, right? Because it cannot be unwholesome 100% of the time. So what did Venerable Master Xing said? That it should be changed to sexual misconduct is the worst of all that is unwholesome. So it's how we treat this area, how we conduct ourselves along this sexual relationship. So a proper marital relationship are advocated by the Buddha, while sexual misconduct, on the other hand, is unacceptable even in society. So there's a proper marital relationship. So inappropriate relations such as incest are indeed profoundly immoral. Polygamy and extramarital relationships are also considered unwholesome and improper. So such practices should be eradicated and abolished. I know people who would mention that, for example, in for Muslim, they're they're allowed up to 4 wives, and they will joke that, I'll just become a Muslim so I can have more wives. But if you really ask the Muslim, they will say, I don't want more wives. Because they have to support not just one, but now they have to support 2, 3, 4. So if you ask the Muslim, many of them will say those who have more than one wives are usually the very rich, wherein they can really afford, because they have to support them evenly. So you cannot just support one and the other one and neglect the other one. Cannot be like that. So again, if you really understand it, most people, most Muslim don't want to do that also. So on the other hand, proper and wholesome relationships should be supported, for they are just as valid as the idea filial piety is the foremost amongst all that is wholesome, right? So again, I would say that's why I say Buddhism is very wise, because we know the Buddha knows the middle path. The Buddha doesn't just talk in extremes, right? So going back to the topic at hand, that's why I was also a bit confused in the start of the article, because it talks about lust, but it talks more on filial piety. So in the article, it starts by telling us that taking care of parents, especially in old age, so they lack nothing in life. So this is the practice of filial piety, right? But according to Master Lianchi, this is just the basic level, so entry level. This is not the only way you can pay respect or to be filial to your parents. So above that would be to bring honor to one's family. So if you analyze this, the highlight here is mine. So bringing honor is to avoid shaming our family, avoid doing deeds that will shame our family. So things like that, right? So again, it goes back to our action and how our actions affect our family or especially our parents. You know, sometimes when we're kids, we do something bad and then people will say, look at this kid. Aren't you taught by your parents? See, if you do something bad, they think that the parents did not teach you well. Right? So as we go through life, we have to learn to bring honor to our family. Even greater would be to guide one's parents towards practicing the Buddha's teachings so that they avoid suffering of samsara. Again, I've mentioned this before. Sometimes even if you want to teach the Dharma to people, many won't accept, many won't listen. That's why I said I would require a meeting to my staff, and then I will even pay overtime. If it's overtime, then I talk about the Dharma. So they're forced to sit in front of me. And I'm able to do that because I'm their boss. But if I'm not their boss, I'm sure they will be absent. Right? But for many people, even my father, if I talk Dharma to him, he might not listen. So in fact, a few weeks ago, he was asking me, Peter said his dad would do the same thing. So a few weeks ago, my dad asked me, oh, you're not, maybe he knew that there's a service, Dharma service at the temple. So he asked me, oh, aren't you going to the temple? I said, no, I need to do something. But I told him, but if you want to go, I'll go with you now. Said, and then he said, next time. You see, so sometimes even if you want to help them, they don't want, they don't accept. So that's why it's sometimes very difficult. But this is what is considered the most superlative form of filial piety, because if we teach them the Dharma, then they can avoid many kinds of suffering. So that's why we're trying to learn, right? So that we can avoid many kinds of suffering. So it seems like it's kind of difficult to practice filial piety, right? Because, for example, right now, even if I want to take care of my father, he's so independent. He doesn't need me. He drives. He's more than 80 years old. He's 84, but he still drives his own car. When we recommended that he buy a new car, he even contemplated of buying manual driven cars, manual shift, because he's been used to driving manual. He doesn't want automatic, but we forced him to buy automatic. So he finally relented and accepted the automatic. But before, he would just drive the manual. So that's an example where sometimes even if you want to help them or to take care of them, they don't need my help. Now, what is not filial piety? Okay, so here Venerable Master Xing Yun is trying to emphasize this in this article. Okay, that's when I said it's kind of difficult because it's when I chose this topic, I thought I'll talk about filial piety itself, but here Venerable Master Xing discuss on what is not filial piety. I think it's because the Chinese culture, we as parents are very strict to our children to a point that our idea of filial piety has become obedience, right? So I do believe this, and I think if I didn't encounter Buddhism, I would require my children to be obedient also, right? To listen to me all the time and to listen to whatever I say, regardless of if it makes sense or not, right? And I guess this is a Chinese way of thinking also, that children should remain close to home so that they can take care of their parents. And maybe in ancient times, this is a very logical, very reasonable way of bringing up kids, because maybe it's more difficult living, because I could imagine in ancient times, maybe houses are farther apart from each other or something like that. You need someone to really take care of your parents, right? But just imagine if your parents live to 90s and you're 70 years old already and you're still taking care of your parents before you can live your own life.
What about Prince Charles? Diba? He waited.
At least he doesn't need to take care of his parents or his mom. He just need to wait for him to become king. But just imagine you cannot have your own life because you have to be with your parents, right? So I think that's kind of a bit unfair also. So yeah, Venerable Master Xing gave that as an example. And he also mentioned about, in terms of relationship, what should have been a natural unity of love could unfortunately be obstructed by parental interference that forces two people without affinities to marry. Especially in the old days, you know, the Chinese, we have arranged marriage, right? Where then is the joy in life? If the two of you don't have affinity, you don't like each other, and then you're forced to be together. And somehow I've talked to Sheila a few times about this thing, so I asked her to cite an example, a concrete example. She has an example from her ninang ba to, Sheila? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, we talk about the idea of kai xiao, which is matchmaking in Chinese here. Can you hear? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we talk during our study group, or it could be during our classes here at the temple. So one time the topic came out and I shared with Erwin that I have this godmother. She's my godmother during our marriage, when we got married at the church. And she's one of the best friends of my mother-in-law. And she's very, very conservative. So she has 3 daughters, and she only wants her daughter to marry someone of Chinese descent. So when one of her daughters started dating like a Filipino, she was like totally against it. She said, no, I don't like that guy for you. I don't think it's gonna work out. I think you better find somebody of Chinese descent. But the Filipino guy was so nice and friendly and caring that she was able to change her mind. And she was so impressed by him that, every time like she gets together with my mother-in-law, she always tells my mother-in-law, because my mother-in-law is also very conservative till now. She said she even tells my kids, oh, you should marry Chinese, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, my ninang or my godmother was telling my mother-in-law, na, you know, I love my Filipino son-in-law so much. You know, he really knows how to take care of us. He treats us so, you know, like his own parents, and he treats my daughter like a princess. He takes care of her. He showers her with affection. And that's something like in Chinese men, they don't really, you know, say, I love you very much. They don't show you affection. And then they expect the woman to do like all the household chores and everything and, you know, serve them from day to night. So my mother-in-law was just very impressed. And she was even sharing with me, na, oh, you know, it's not, you know, it's not the culture you should go. You should really marry someone, you know, you love, and look at the person, look at the family, not just the race. So yeah, that's what I would like to share.
Yeah.
True
So
story. True story.
yes. So that's why I asked her to talk about this, because that's exactly what Venerable Master is trying to tell us here. That it's about the person, the family, the background, right? Not the race itself. So that's why Venerable Master Xingyon is telling us as parents, we need to be understanding and open-minded. Otherwise, their unreasonable and irrational behaviors enforced onto their children in the guise of filial piety could compromise the child's dreams and ambitions. This is quite true because we really don't know the future, right? Whether it's Chinese or non-Chinese, we don't really know the future. We don't really know how the person will treat each other in the future. All we know is the current situation, maybe the background. So we should, I believe we should make decision based on that. For my daughter, I've said this many times. I told them, I want to meet your boyfriend before they become your boyfriend. I want to meet them at a temple. Simply because not to convert them to Buddhism, but to teach them 3 acts of goodness. Right? We just want to be good. Because I told my daughter, I keep on teaching you 3 acts of goodness, and then you'll just marry somebody who do 3 acts of badness. So it's your it's your loss.
Yeah. Napa tong boyfriend si imong anak ro niya? Napa?
Napa man?
Aw, nilahutay di ay. Amin akong dili kalahutay.
Napa. Yeah. So well, I cannot say also that would be the best way, but you know, like I said, I try to teach anyone who I can impart or force the 3 acts of goodness. Right? So it's up to them if they apply it in their life. I would agree with Peter, they must take the 5 precepts to marry them. And they have to understand, explain to me the 5 precepts. You know? Oh. Especially number 3, no sexual misconduct. They have to really understand that by heart. Okay?
And they do have the marriage ceremony also in the temple.
Yeah.
Like
No.
in Mabuhay, they have it.
That I don't know if I can force them to do it
Yeah.
there.
Oh, I mean, you know, but Peter's suggestion is wise. The 5 precepts.
That's true. That's true.
I didn't come up with it myself. I overheard other people say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Of
they can
course.
get married at the place behind Ube, January 1st. They have at
Red Jelly,
the Buddha Museum.
married there. Yeah. Okay, so back to our topic. So such harm can further cause collateral damage to the future cultural and workforce developments of a country. So yeah, we don't know, right? So it could affect both parents and children. So what can we learn from Filial Piety Sutra? So this is, when I chose this topic, I thought it's going to talk about this sutra. But Venerable Master Xing was, I think, he realized that there are many Chinese parents who are very, very strict, too strict. Chinese are known for tiger mom, unsa pa kaya na dyan? Helicopter mom, lawn mower mom. Lawn mower moms are moms who pave everything properly in front of their children, so that their children only have to go through all, well manicured lawn in front of them. So I guess that's the reason why Venerable Master Xing talk about this topic. But there's a sutra called Filial Piety Sutra. And then it talks about how a mother, the caring of a mother and parents to the children. So the Buddha started talking about how a mother would carry the child in her womb for 9 months, nourish the child with her milk, and then the mother would become worn out and haggard. And so Ananda, when he heard this, he felt a pain in his heart and as if he had been stabbed, and he wept silently, just because the Buddha talked about these things. And so he asked the Buddha, how can one repay one's mother's kindness and virtue? So the Buddha went on to talk even more about the 10 types of kindness that the Buddha or the mother bestow upon the child. So first is the kindness of providing protection and care while the child is in the womb. So I know people, especially Filipinos, many, they don't want, they after a few months of pregnancy, they would stop working already because they want to take care of their child. After the child is born, they don't want to work anymore because they want to take care of their child, even if they need money, right? So the children is always number one. So the second is the kindness of bearing suffering during birth. So for mothers, especially in the old days, birth is a painful experience. Nowadays, there's epidural, so many mothers doesn't have to go through pain anymore. But I know of people who went through pain, and the Buddha talked about the third kindness, wherein the mother would forget all the pain once the child has been born. So many people, they talk about a mother shouting while giving birth, saying that she will not give birth or she will not bear a child anymore after this, but ends up with 2, 3, 4 children after. So they forget about the pain so fast. Right? So much more nowadays. There's epidurals, there's no more pain, but people have less child because they see the suffering in terms of taking care of the child growing up, very expensive, not the pain itself in the body. The fourth kind of kindness is eating the bitter herself and saving the sweet for the child. Yeah, so many times a parents would do this. Me, for example, I would cut mango, cut it in half, and give my wife and my children the 2 halves, and then I'll just eat the seed part. Not that I didn't enjoy eating the seed part, it's still yummy, right? Yeah, but that's just one example. I'm not suffering with that. I'm enjoying the seed though. The fifth kind is moving the child to a dry place and lying in the wet herself. So a mother would sometimes the child sleeping in bed together, and then the child would pee on the bed, and then the mother will change the clothes of the baby, and there's no more other space. So the mother will move the child to the dry part and then cover some, maybe put some sheets on the wet part, and then she would sleep there. Right? The mother normally wouldn't sleep, let the child sleep in the same wet space. Next is the kindness, the kindness of the child suckling at the mother's breast, nourishing and bringing up the child. For a while, there's milk that you can buy in groceries, but nowadays it is encouraged that babies should take breast milk, and it's still the best formula for children, for babies, right? So people nowadays are going back to breastfeeding. Seventh is the kindness of washing away the unclean. Yeah, I tried to recall when my baby were small. If they pee, I'm fine. I would change the diaper. But when they poo, when I open, I say poo. Call my wife to change. Okay, but of course the mother will always will not complain, right? Though I don't complain cleaning the poo of my dog. The eighth is the kindness of always thinking of the child whenever they traveled afar. Yeah, I'm experiencing this now. So two of my daughter is already, one is in Manila, one is in Singapore. So I set up a Discord. Discord is like this Zoom. Actually, I feel it's a bit better than this. So if I don't have anything to do at night, I will just open it and wait for them to log in. It's up to them if they log in or not. I'll just wait there. And then my wife was telling me, nobody's there inside the Discord with you. I said, it's okay. Uh, anyway, so the 9 is the kindness and deep care and devotion. Okay, so parents always wants the best for their children, to a point that, like I mentioned, the lawnmower mom, their intention is really good, right? They want the best for the children to a point that it's really not wise anymore, right? We cannot like pave everything, manicure everything for them, because now we're breeding a weakling child. Okay, but we really do care for them. And the 10th is the kindness of ultimate pity and sympathy, right? If the children gets hurt, yeah, we feel that same hurt. That's why as parents, we would try to catch them all the time whenever they're about to fall, right? For me, me and my wife, I told my wife, when they're about to fall, yes, we catch them, but we still let them fall. Why? Because if we keep on catching them and not let them fall, next time, if you're not able to catch them, they will really fall very hard because they thought somebody will catch them. So now, if you catch them and let them fall, and they will say, oh, next time if they fall, they will still react the same way. Yeah, so it's important that we have the wisdom, not catch them perfectly. And now they become dependent on you. Okay. So the Buddha speaks about the deep kindness of parents and emphasizing the difficulty of repaying it. So like I said, it's very difficult because like my father, 80 years old already, still very independent. He doesn't need my help. He goes around his business, comes home, sleep on his own, right? So many things we cannot, yeah. And the virtue of one's parents' kindness is boundless and limitless. Our love for our parents cannot compare the parents' love for their children, right? So the Buddha, in this sutra, the Buddha also talks about unfilial child. So who are the unfilial child? So children who doesn't consider their parents' great kindness and virtue. They ignore, they cannot understand the kindness and the virtue of the parents given to them. They are disrespectful and turn their backs on kindness and what is right. Children, sometimes they have their own ideas, especially nowadays. There's internet, they can read anything on the internet, and not all on the internet are wise, right? So they think they know a lot of things, and that is just knowledge. I always tell them that is knowledge, that is not wisdom. There's a difference. They may lack humaneness and are neither filial or compliant. Again, not all parents are very strict, like, right? So, but then sometimes the children, they have their own idea, especially when they start to be teenagers and adult. So when they ought to be polite, they have no manners. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it's also us parents who did not impart this. Because I know of some parents, when their children are still young, they will discipline them because they're thinking, oh, they're still children. But for me, children, we have to discipline them. You cannot expect them to be polite if you don't teach them, right? But some children also, even if you teach them, they're still not polite. So that's why we parents, we have to be wiser so that we will know how to teach them. Okay? They glare at those whom they should venerate and insult their uncles and aunts. So no respect. Especially if they think they are so good, they are so smart. Then they have this ego that, would insult anyone, even their elders. And they scold their siblings and destroy any family feelings that might have existed among them. So again, even among siblings, sometimes there are children who quarrel with each other all the time. Children like that have no respect or sense of propriety. Okay. So children may be well taught, but if they are unfilial, they will not heed the instructions or obey the rules. So, like I said, sometimes you teach them, but they simply will not agree. They think you are not smart, you are not wise. So sometimes you can't help it. Rarely they will rely upon the guidance of their parents. I hope my children are still relying on me. They're adults now. Almost all of them, only one left with one more year to go. They are contrary and rebellious when interacting with their brothers, sometimes even with parents, especially when teenager. For me, they're not that rebellious, although there are some disagreement. I know they agree, or not really agree, but they will just keep silent even if they don't agree. I knew because sometimes we talk and they get hurt and then they will cry. So I know. But I believe that they have the respect. That's why they just keep silent. They come and go from home without ever reporting to their parents. So it's like the parents doesn't exist anymore. Their speech and actions are very arrogant, and they act on impulse without consulting others. So this again, I would say, I believe if our children, they think that they're so good, they will act like this. That's why I always compare all of us, you, my children, and me. We are all learning, right? So we are nothing compared to the Buddha. So at least if they think this way, I hope they won't be that arrogant, even if they know a lot of things. Such children ignore the admonishments and punishments set down by their parents and pay no regard to their uncle's warnings. So sometimes even if you have punishments, they are numb from all the punishments already that they still won't listen. Yet at the same time, they're immature and always need to be looked after and protected by their elders. Yes, even sometimes us, we are also immature. So much more children, right? So how do we repay the kindness and virtue of parents? So earlier in the article, there's already mentioned in the article, right? How do we repay? But in the Filial Piety Sutra, there are a few more. So I listed it down. So write out Filial Piety Sutra on their behalf. So this is sutra copying, right? And I believe it doesn't have to be limited to the Filial Piety Sutra. It can also be other sutra. And recite Filial Piety Sutra on their behalf. So again, I also believe that it can be other sutras as well. Repent of transgressions and offenses on their behalf. I don't know whose transgression is this. No, is it our transgression or our parents' transgression? Parents, right? I think it's referring to the parents. So we try to repent in their behalf, their transgression if they have, right? So for the sake of your parents, make offerings to the triple gem. So for example, me, I noticed when my mom passed away, so I learned from the temple that my mom has been making offerings in behalf of her parents and also my dad's parents and also my dad. My dad doesn't go to temple, so he just make offering in behalf of him. So me, I just continued that. And then I added my mother also. Yeah. So again, this is an example where, you know, your parents do something and you have something to follow. So if your parents are not doing that, so how will we know that we're supposed to do that unless we suddenly went to the temple and the master will teach us, or we happen to read this Filial Piety Sutra, then we will know, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't know. So that's why it's good that we keep on learning from the study group, from the masters, from the Rinpoche Master Xingyan, so that we know what are the things that we need to do. So for the sake of your parents, hold the precepts of pure eating. So sometimes you eat vegetables, vegetarian, you dedicate all merits to them. So for the sake of your parents, practice giving and cultivate blessings. So basically, from what I understand with all of this is anything we do, any good things we do, whether speech, action, or thoughts, then we dedicate it to them. So I think that's the basic idea of this. So whenever we practice the 3 acts of goodness, then we dedicate it to our parents. So actually, if for me, if this is how we can somehow repay some of the kindness of our parents, it's not very difficult, right? We just need to do these things. Of course, if you're not doing these things, how can you repay? Even if you dedicate merits, there's nothing, no merits to dedicate to them, right? So in short, the article is leading us to the middle path of filial piety. So although it is basic ethic inherent in Chinese culture and should be propagated, parents should also be appealed to respect their children as well, right? Children should be allowed autonomy when they come of age. Just as the saying goes, let your children and their children find their own path. Being open-minded and granting them the freedom to choose their future is an important lesson for modern-day parents. So I would say the middle path of filial piety. Okay, as parents, we learn how we should practice and take care of our children, but as children also, we learn also how to pay respect or how to repay the kindness of our parents. So with that, I leave you with two videos. This one is, I'm not sure if it's Hong Kong or Singapore government.
When you first showed up, they laughed and laughed. You just cried on. When you ran, they were right behind you. When she tried to hold on to you,
I can do it on my own. What about your future plans? Never mind, you won't understand. He hasn't called since he moved out.
they have always loved you. What about you?
Mom, please wake up.
Show your love and care.
Oh, so this is Hong Kong government, right? Yeah, so, you know, sometimes children like this, your mother holding your hands, even if you're teenager already, because for parents, your children never grows up, right? They're all there. They'll be always your baby. So crossing the street, the mother tried to hold the hands of her children, and then the child got irritated because the mom still treats them like a child. And here, the mom is thinking what the children should do for their future, right? But maybe the child is thinking the mother is overreaching, or how, or maybe trying to influence me or whatever, right? But it's just the mother's care.
When you first showed up, they laughed and laughed.
Then there's one more video.
ปิยชาติค่ะ5 เต็ม 10 ค่ะ สมภพค่ะ9 เต็ม 10 ค่ะ อาภาค่ะ
แม่ไม่รักผม
แม่
ไม่เคยมีเวลาที่จะสนใจผม
ป้าคะขอยืมไฟแช็กหน่อยค่ะได้
ไม่เคยมีเค้กวันเกิดเหมือนคนอื่น
เฮ้ยพบแม่งมาว่ะ
พบทำไมมาอยู่ที่นี่ แทนที่จะเอาเวลามั่วสุมกลับไปทำการบ้าน แล้วเงินที่แม่ให้พบไปโรงเรียนอยู่ทุกวันพบเอามาเล่นเกมเหรอพบไม่ต้องมาเถียง
ๆ ไม่
สงสารแม่บ้างไหม
แม้กระทั่งจะฟังความจริงจากผม
แม่ก็ฟังมึงดิ
ในสายตาแม่ ผมมันเป็นแค่เด็กไม่รักดี
ไม่ให้
ก็แค่คอมอ่ะ ผ่อนเอาก็ได้นี่แม่
ค่าใช้จ่ายในบ้านมันเยอะแยะ ฉันจะเอาที่ไหนให้แก
ถ้าได้อ่ะจะไม่ขออะไรแม่อีกเลย ทั้งที่ก็ไม่เคยได้อะไรอยู่แล้ว
ฉันไม่ให้
แม่ไม่เคยรู้หรอกว่าผมทำอะไรได้บ้างอะสนใจแต่เรื่องของตัวเอง ก็อยู่ไปคนเดียวแล้วกัน
นานแล้ว
คอมก็คอมผมนะครับ
ขอแป๊บเดียวจะเสร็จแล้วเนี่ย
อ่ะนี่10 ตัว
ครับผม ขอบคุณครับพี่ ฮัลโหลครับ ครับ ก็อยู่ไปคนเดียวแล้วกัน
ก็ค่าใช้จ่ายในบ้านมันเยอะแยะ ฉันจะเอาตังค์ที่ไหนไปให้แก
สนใจแต่เรื่องของตัวเอง ไม่ให้ก็ไม่เอา ป้าเตี๋ยวชามดิเส้นเล็ก
เป็นผมเองต่างหากที่สนใจแต่เรื่องของตัวเอง ทั้งที่แม่ ให้ผมมาตลอด แม้แต่วันสุดท้าย ในชีวิต
So there's more of this in YouTube, and every time I watch it's giving me teary-eyed, so I did not add it anymore.
I think this video is specifically made for parents.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
This is not designed for the children. This is for the parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because-
it's two ways, because here I can see that the mother is, I can imagine being a strict parents like her also.
Because the problem with this one is the video is just like something like develop the guilt for the children, that the children doesn't appreciate what the parents did. But for me, this is kind of the parents' fault. For one reason is they don't have a very clear conversation with the kid. Like for example, like the kid give the picture, the drawing, the mother should have said appreciate, thank you, but she doesn't. So she have this wrong impression. So
That's true.
they
That's
they
true.
should have clear communication with them.
Yes, I agree with that. And I can imagine a Chinese parent are like that. Okay.
I don't understand why Chinese parent.
Although my parents are not like that, but I can imagine if they're like that. So I can relate a bit. I cannot say that I'm totally like that. But for example, the example of the mother trying to save money to buy a computer, I can imagine a Chinese parent like that, and they won't tell the children that they are having a hard time, saving. Peter, you have anything to add?
Different. Here you go.
Yeah, Rigo touched a sore point in my family. For me personally, I'm actually quite scared of my father. When I hear he's still alive, by the way. Like we see each other quite regularly. But whenever I hear his voice, I get scared. when I was young, I wasn't a good boy. I wasn't very filial. So I got in trouble a lot. There are a few situations where I can't get the images out of my head. Once he had a golf club. He was going to strike at me, but he struck the wall instead and made a hole in the wall. That was a scary moment. There was a moment where he turned me upside down and threw me on the ground. That's another moment that I can relive right now. So after learning Buddhism, then you can start observing. Then I start to observe my parents a bit more. And I remember this Venerable Hui Day, in one of his talk, he said, us children should talk to our parents a bit more. And I've always had trouble talking to my parents because I'm so scared of them, even till now. Like I'm saying, like I'm still fearful when I hear his voice because he's so stern. And one day I was privately with this Venerable Hui Day, and I asked him, you know, in your Dharma talk, you said that this is what we should do. And I thought, and I told him, I'm just so scared of my dad. And he told me that I have to. No, I have to. He just mentioned that I should remind myself what kind of era that my dad grew up, because in Taiwan it was through the Japanese period, and his father was very abusive. Like he would break my grandma's bones to that extent, and a lot of smacking and everything. So Rijo touches to a point. Yes, they are like that. And my dad is still with me. And I have to remind myself how he grew up. And it's something that's passed on to him. It's the causes and conditions that made him to be like him as he now. In school, he was not very smart. He got really bad marks. And his parents were just like, you know, they were teachers, like laughing at, not laughing, but like, you know, I can't find the English word for it. And he was made fun, and he was, you know, people didn't think he was going to succeed. So he had a bit of a self-esteem problem. So I have to look at my father from that perspective to find a compassion way to see him instead of that fear. But even though I can, and I don't have any hatred to my father, but it's such a habitual tendency for that fear to arise in me. It's hard to break. Yeah. Thank you.
Even me, my children, I don't know. I think I'm not that strict, but I find that they hardly, well, they talk to us, but when it comes to their problem, they don't really talk to us also. Yeah. So they talk among themselves, the siblings, and there are some things that they're kind of like afraid to talk to us. So sometimes what I do is I send them a message and they will talk.
Judgmental guru kaya.
Because, you know, I feel how I see it is children nowadays, they're better sending messages than verbal communication. So that's how I felt. I don't know if I'm right, but that's how I felt. So that's why sometimes I message them.
I think it's also how we are. Like if they see that like there is a certain way that, diba, when we ask and we say we're here, we're listening, are we really showing or making them feel that we're really hearing them? And that's where the kids will, you know, wall themselves off if they see, like, I've tried again, and yet what we say and how we are do not match. That's when they start, you know, also setting their boundaries and going somewhere else.
That's true.
Yeah.
especially if you tell them, "Shh, do not lie," and then you
And
yourself
then,
keep on
yeah,
lying.
and then they will see you do that, diba? Like, don't get mad, be reasonable, and then they see you going off, diba? So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that's why as parents, we have to be always several steps ahead.
Yeah, it's
And we
it's
have
really it's really modeling. It's really for us modeling because it was just a topic between my sister, my姐姐, and my mom and I last week. Like, my mom was saying that, your brothers, they really, are very accommodating with their wives like that. And then but my mom is not an awful mother-in-law. Okay, she's very open to her daughters-in-law, but my brothers are really super sweet, super loving to their wives. And then my mom was saying, they're really ganyan, ganyan. And then my sister, my cheche, was saying, but mom, you shouldn't really, you should be proud of how your sons are to their wives, because that's the modeling they got from your husband and you, how you are and how dad treats you. So the kids really look to us. So even with the filial piety, with how we are, it's how we behave. If we want to, like in the Christian church, they say it's a generational curse. So if we want to break that curse, it starts with us. Parang we are the ones. So if we think that like our parents were like this, then we behave in a better way to the next generation. So it breaks the bad habits of the past. Parang ganun lang yun. And then we improve and improve and improve. That's how I feel, and that's how we have been trying to do it.
That's very true. That's why earlier I said that sometimes we need examples, right, for
Yeah.
us to follow, like
Mm.
how my mom dedicated marriage to her
Correct.
parents. So,
Correct.
and this is another example. But then again, it cannot be always like that, because if Peter will follow his dad, then maybe he should start swinging his golf clubs now.
Kaya nga, if you feel like the child of a parent that you feel you were pained, diba? So you start a different model because of that experience,
So that's why
diba?
we have to have the wisdom to know if we should follow or not.
Yes.
And also, this also shows us, Peter's example also shows us that it's not all the time that the parents are very strict, are harsh, that the children will be like that also.
Yeah.
His example, his father's parents is strict and harsh, and his father is like that. But in his case, I suppose he is not
Hindi
like
na.
that, right? So there's a change.
Ah.
So I believe, I don't know, maybe Peter, you can tell us, if you realize or maybe learn from the Dharma, then you can adjust your life differently in a better way, regardless of how you started in the past, right? So he was talking about how to arise his compassion towards his father, even if he still has that fear lingering up to now. So that's a clear example of trying to tweak out his fear and converting it into compassion. And that's with you not only have knowledge of what we learn, but the wisdom to apply it, right? So really everything depends on us, on how we learn and apply, right? Shipo and Sheila, you have some discussions going on. Maybe you can share with us. Who among the two of you will share with us? They're pointing at each other.
And I think, di ba, I think in one who shared with us, I think it was Venerable Miao Kwang, right? That shared with us about the corporal punishment during no, I watched one of her interviews where she spoke about how she grew up, and in Taiwan before, corporal punishment was still the norm. So, parang like us, like during when we were kids, Erwin, I think, we got spanked,
Yeah, I did.
but
Many
right?
times.
Many times, like among our siblings, I was the most spanked because I was the naughtiest. So, but the kids of today, you cannot do that. You have to really sit them down and talk with them like that, diba? Yeah. So it's really a generation thing. So what Peter also shared earlier, that it's per generation, and the conditions of before, the causes of before. Yeah.
But then again, right? That doesn't mean that we are spanked before we become bad adults.
Yeah. It should not be an excuse to become bad adults.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, many times I notice, especially in the West, children, they're not spanked, but the children think they're so much better than the adults and their parents. So that's why, for me, it's not wise enough to just say, "Oh, you should not spank your children." If you say you should not spank, what is your alternative suggestion? So me, I don't spank my children, but I pitik them.
I think it's humans never really understand if they don't have the feeling of physical manifestations, like for example for the spank. For me, humans will never learn unless they will really experience that the bitter way. So for me, I think it should be nice to still have the punishment or something like that, but not to the extent like unlike before, just pure anger. But this
True,
time,
true.
for example, okay, so you'll do something as per agreement under the section 5, chapter 16, on our agreement that you'll be meditating for 15 minutes and one spunk at the back. So that's it by the law. In
So you
our
have to have a law of
May
the house or something like
constitution
that.
si
Oh,
Regent.
oh.
Yeah, and that is based on our constitution. For me, because honestly, if I'm speaking, I'm just too blessed that I have, even though my parents are broken, no, they're separated, and I say broken, they're not broken, but stay separate. But the way the way let me grow up is, let's say, okay, Regel, you do something bad, so should I hit you now? That's both my mom and my dad. Yeah, honestly.
And
So like,
what is your answer? No, don't hit me.
I know, I said, yes, that's my wrong, so I understand. So not to the extent that really hit me well, but sometimes I lie. But because, for example, like for my dad's side, people think that they are really so high level and they're, how to say that, they're better than their parents. And then I talked this to my dad and I said, okay, Reggie, let's have some debate. Let's see who wins. Now, until now, that's why I appreciate that. And for me, it should be like that. For me.
That's why in my case, the pitik, I don't know what's in the English for that.
Next time you bring the stick, yeah, the one they use for the meditation hall. I do like that.
No,
Race-
I never need to go to
Racy?
that because I started doing
No,
this
not racing.
when my children are still very young.
You know what pitik is? What pitik is in English? Yung a flick. You flick. Tama ba, Gracie?
flick,
Yeah, you
yeah,
flick
flick.
them. You flick them. Yeah.
And then at that time, my daughter's hands are so tiny, and then one flick, even if I don't do it very hard, it will hurt them. And then I give them a choice. So again, it's either you count 1 to 10 or you want pitik. You choose which one do you want.
Oh, that's good.
So many times they will say, count 1 to 10. So they will just stand there. 1, 2. And then if they did something really bad, for example, they hit their siblings, I hate you. Count 1 to 10. Count 10 times. So they have to stand there and count 1 to 10 times.
That one they will remember that one also because they experienced some kind of how to say that unpleasant physical pain.
True.
Yes.
And the
And
count 1 to 10
remember.
calms them down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The unpleasant and the uncomfortable counting very slow.
true. And then, you know, because of the pitik, sometimes when they quarrel, you see them. They want to pitik their siblings. If you spank them, you will see them also, right? But since I do this, when they're angry at their siblings, they're doing this. And then when they hit their siblings with this, it doesn't hurt.
Ikaw na i-judge na sunod ya.
Maybe I told them without, hey, let's write a book about these things that I did for all of you.
Judge na kanila sunod. Ato ipitikon si Papa kay
won't drink his insure. So at least for me, I have an alternative, right? And I believe, for example, the count 1 to 10. Ultimately, they always choose one count 1 to 10 because they don't want to get the pitik. But I remember one time, I don't know which daughter, she said, I want to try the pitik again because I forgot already. That time I really make sure that it hurts them. And okay, they never asked it again. So yeah, I mean, it's so easy to tell people, right? Oh, you should not spank your children. But if you don't have alternatives, sometimes the parents, they don't know what to do. They don't spank them, and then the children get so rebellious, they don't listen. What do you do? So me, I have a choice. Count 1 to 10 or pitik. Even at night, they're supposed to sleep already. And then when they lie in bed, then that's the time they start talking. You turn off the lights, and then they start talking because there's no more cell phone. And actually, they're still young, so they don't have cell phone at that time. So they start talking. It's time to sleep. Who doesn't want to sleep? Go outside the room. And then they will ask. And then they don't listen, so they continue talking. Let's say, Raisa, go outside. And then they will ask me, what will I do when I go outside? You go outside, you count 1 to 10 until you want to sleep. So they went out, they count 1 to 10. After one round, they come in and they sleep. If they don't see again, go outside and count 1 to 10 until you want to sleep. And then they go outside, count 1 to 10, then go back. So I don't need to spank them. And then the others, they don't want, they want to keep quiet already because they don't want to go outside. They don't know what to do there outside the door. Nowadays, if I do that, maybe they will just go outside and go party somewhere. Ay, nako.
That's like excuse yeah. Like
Yeah.
dad kicked me out from the house, so I need to go party.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are the things that I did to my children, and without having to spank them, without having to be very strict with them. Yeah. So just an alternative. Anyone else want to share something? Actually, it's the end of my slide.
Yes.
Yeah. So my last slide. is to thank everyone, and may all of you, parents and children, be enlightened so that this cosmos will be a better place to live in. Right? So if all of us knows what to do, what is the ideal or the middle path, then everything will go smoothly, easy for all of us, right?
Darren, do you have something you wanted to say?
Who?
Dario.
Yes. I would
Yes,
just
Ariel.
like to share about the video. I was a bit that I was touched by the video. Um, okay. I was touched by the video, and I think I heard someone from the group. It was the fault, or somehow it was the fault of the parent, for not communicating well. I think earlier in Showtime, I watched the some of the hosts mentioned that everyone has its own love language. And for us, whether if you're a parent, if you are a if you're a child, or if you're a grandparent, we have to be open and let's think of why is somebody acting that way. Is that his or her own kind of love language? It was mentioned earlier that some people, they tend to say than acting. Others, they prefer to act than saying that I love you. For example, by service, by spending time with your loved one, or by messaging them, oh, are you okay? Or by giving them food, serving them, giving service to their loved one. So now that our topic is filial piety, we have to be mindful of our love language, and also mindful of how we perceive other people's love language. Each of us has different and has unique love language. So yeah, love language.
Yeah,
In
that's very
due respect, Daryl, I don't disagree with your love language, but we humans have a certain kind of common ground. There's no way for me to tell you like, okay, what's your love language? Should you feel? Should we need to be give, to be kiss, or some words? There's no such thing as that. And real life scenario, if even you, if you are the parents and I'm the kid, I'll give you your drawing, and I mean I'm the mother, I'm the father, and you are the kid. You give me something, I don't receive that because I don't. That's not my love language. How will you feel?
That's true. That's
There's
true.
no such thing as
But the
that.
point here is different people have different way of expressing things. So that's why as a person, whether you're a parent or a children, we somehow have to have we somehow
Like
have to gain wisdom.
like a common ground something. For me, this is what we call as etiquette. Common etiquette. Like they should like respond like this, even if that is not your common language, because there's no way we're playing guessing games. That's the
No, but
problem.
eh, yeah, in a way, yeah, but somehow that's the mother. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how
But
she
the
can't,
problem with that,
maybe she doesn't have the right wisdom to be able
also,
to
yeah,
express herself. So I mean,
right.
how will you change her? They tell her
That's
to
the
join the study group, so
that's
she
why
will
for me,
learn.
yeah,
But
it should unlike before, like way back long time ago, humans have what we call as the etiquette. Like even the Western people and the
that's
Eastern
true.
people have the Chinese,
But
they have the etiquette. Like even if they don't like it, they must say please. They must say
true.
thank you.
But remember, we don't know what's the
Yeah,
background of the mother.
that's the
So maybe
problem.
the mother, same as what Peter said,
Yeah.
his father, the background is like that. So
Mm.
that's how she learned.
Le-
So you cannot dictate to her that how it
Yeah.
should be, right?
There's
So
nothing we can do about now. But the only thing is we just wish on the next generation, our generation.
let's start with us,
Yeah.
work on our wisdom, and again, let's try to impart to other people, especially around us. That's why
Our
I
next
don't mind. I
generation.
try to force it upon others, but I just talk about the morality and things like that. And hopefully they will learn also, right?
Mm.
Jason here, he said, love is a universal language. If there's anything that parents do in love, then their children should be able to understand it, as every being is capable of love. But then again, in that video, the mother's action is actually love. But the son was not able to realize it until his mom is gone.
Mm.
So true, right? So in a way, correct si Regel, because sometimes the love language, your love language cannot be understood by this child's. He cannot understand your love language, so it just happened like that.
Erwin, because both of them were insisting on their ways. They were on the extremes. Okay?
That could be.
That's
Yeah.
why.
Mm.
But if if the child was not closed up in his mind that his mother was how do you say kanti in English, Grace? That he wasn't being I can't say it. I forgot the exact word, but in Tagalog it's to kanti. Yung parang you refuse somebody. What is kanti, Grace?
Actually, hindi ko rin alam kung
Hindi mo
anong
rin alam. Parang
I don't understand also.
ganti? Ganti?
no, not ganti. Kanti. Parang somebody asked something of you, but you willfully refuse to give it. So if the child thinks in that mindset, without opening his mind to understand his mom, and the mom naman is also close in, so they were on the extreme ends, and that's what we are being reminded, that we have to take the middle path, diba?
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm sure the
So,
mother, for example,
there was nothing wrong with the mother being frugal,
that's true.
diba?
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with the child wanting to have his gadget to be used for his artistic endeavors. But since both of them were set in their extreme positions, that's where the misunderstanding happened. Diba? And it's a very stark reminder to us of the middle path being, the most efficient way of having a better relationship with, each other.
That's why I also agree with Regel saying that they should communicate more, but somehow the mother happened to be, not good in that area also. So that's why
Asa na
there's
sa
some
karong
conflict.
generation niya.
Both of them, not only the mother, both
Yeah.
of them. Because
Both of
they
them
were
are not
both
perfect, so that's why
yes.
they have some areas to improve on, right? And that's
Wala.
why all of us are here also, because we know that we are not perfect and
Para sa
we can learn
kinabukasan.
something here, right? Learn from this video, learn from this article, right?
They should have joined our study group.
Oh.
They should have started.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I said sometimes we parents, our action may not be wise, right? We with all good intention, we try to do this. Sometimes we feel it's good, sometimes we feel it's wise enough, but even then our children doesn't think that way, doesn't feel that way. Our actions to our children, I believe that it's wise, but my children still think otherwise, right? So it also happened. It also happened to me. There are things that I do that my children doesn't agree with me.
I know na what is kanti. To willfully withhold something from somebody. I-refuse mo yun siya willfully, even knowing that it's really needed. But in this case, the mother thought that the child was gonna use it for something else, not for something essential.
But
the child thought that the mother was willfully withholding something of value, of something of importance for his future.
But the way I see it from that video, when the child asks the mother's mind was already racing. I have to buy the noodles that I'm selling. I have to pay for the rent. The mind is already racing, and now I have to buy for the computer. And so she just reacted by saying, you know, you don't need that. Got angry.
But
In
as
her
a
heart,
commercial for
she wanted to.
AIG, may I add
wanted
something?
to
But
give.
as
Yeah.
a commercial for AIG, the American International Group, that AIA, she might have already bought life insurance for the son, and that's why it would work out, right?
Yeah, maybe she's probably thinking of that payment also.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's why she's thinking of so many payments already, and then now she has to add this. So that's why I said, you know, sometimes we just don't understand our parents because we don't know what they're going through, what they're thinking, and everything like that. Right? Let me see. This is, I don't think it's American. It's AIA. So it's still
yes, insurance company,
Oh,
part of AIG.
no, it's AIA.
AIA is Hong Kong subsidiary. It's registered American International
Yeah, but
Assurance.
this
That
is
is part of AIA.
Thai commercial, and they have a lot of like that kind of theme.
Yeah.
Very nice. Makes me cry.
Plays into your kids. They're number one in the world.
There's one more, but I cannot
happening
find
to-
it, so I don't have it. Yeah.
Does Venerable Yohai have anything to add?
Sefo, it's your turn because it's 9:30 already. I didn't notice.
Okay, go.
Okay. Okay, when everyone was discussing, I would just keep thinking about my parents. But yeah, but anyway, it's 9:30. But okay, I just want to hear. Parents not always right. But the Chinese parents just so strict. They always say they are right. And it was because I was naughty. Yeah. But because my mom was too strict. So I was naughty.
Sometimes I still hear my mom's voice, like, oh, I better not do this because what would my mom say? What would my mom think? It's like, oh, I better not do that. I better not do that because I know I'm gonna get an earful from my mom. The little voice is still there till now.
Is that good or bad?
Bad.
Well, it's good because you're not gonna do anything, bad.
Precisely my point. It doesn't mean it doesn't have to be good or bad, Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Certain things happen to one people, similar thing happen to another. One is good, one is bad, Doesn't necessarily mean one thing is bad all the time.
Yeah.
So ultimately for me, if we are able to cultivate wisdom, we are able to see things clearly and make better decision, regardless of how things are happening. It's easier for us to see different perspective.
Yeah.
That's what happened if we learn more. Right?
I think we're more open like now these days. Like if our child wants to do something artistic, it may not be like a high income thing, but I think as we think that if our child is happy, that might be more important than like making a certain amount of money, as long as they find their place in this world and they don't violate their people. So yeah, that's what I always tell my kids, like, as long as you're happy, it's okay, and you're not doing anything bad, and it should be okay. It should be
That's
okay.
the most important thing, because it cannot be as long as you're happy only.
Yeah,
It should be as long as you're happy and you're not doing something bad, or as long as you're happy and it's benefiting yourself and many others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
And also parents don't always say, I do this because I love you, and this is good for you. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Parents don't know what the children's need. So really communicate is important and learn Buddhism is important.
True. Okay, so Safo, let's end the session by dedicating merits to our parents and everyone else. Okay, I'll share my slides again.
And our children.
Yes.
Children.
Okay, palms join. Thank you very much. Let's have a photo. Please turn on your video. Everyone else, can you turn on your video?
I look tired.
Just for pictures. We won't call you to talk anymore. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oops, wrong key. Ready? 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, lotus flower. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, Amitofo.
Good night.
Thanks everyone for tonight.
Thank you.
I'll try to log in next week, but don't call me. 20 something, 21. So I'll be here next.
So you're not here on 20th.
Hmm?
You're not here on 20. Uh-oh.
It's the story.
Any job for the storytelling contest?
Oh no, I'm not here.
Oh.
Ah. So you print out a wing poster. That was a camera.
Make a standee of yourself.
No, just put variable master Singyan sa po. No need to put me there. Yeah.
Okay.
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 Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.